Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Meg Bignell joining me. Hi Meg.
Hi Jackie, how are you?
Good, thank you. We're excited to have you here today chatting to us. A little bit about Meg. Meg was a nurse and a weather presenter on telly before she surrendered to a persistent desire to write. Since then, she has been writing almost every day, bits and pieces here and there, either to earn a crust, to get something off her chest, or to entertain herself. She has written 3 short films, mostly because she wanted to do some acting and no one else would cast her. She sings a bit too, occasionally writes and performs cabaret, but it is mostly very busy being a mother to 3 and a wife to 1. She lives with her family on a dairy farm on Tasmania's east coast, and her latest book is The Angry Woman's Choir, which I've got my copy here. Also, just want to mention that thanks to Penguin, anyone watching now, if you've got a question for Meg, please type it in comments and you'll have a chance to win your own copy of The Angry Woman's Choir. So, thanks, Meg, for joining me. Just wondering if you want to start off by telling us a bit about The Angry Woman's Choir.
Well, the Angry Women's Choir is the story of a woman called Freycinet who it's set in Tasmania. She lives in Hobart and she has what looks like from the outside the perfect life. She has a successful husband, a beautiful house, 3 beautiful children, but she doesn't really fit into her own busy schedule. And she, quite by accident, falls into the arms of a very eccentric and loud and colourful women's choir, and they pretty much ruin her life.
Mm. And I have to mention, I read The Angry Woman's Choir and loved it. It's got some great humour in it, as well as some deep and meaningful things as well.
Thank you.
Could you share with us what was the first idea you had for this book?
I've tried to remember exactly what the first inspiration was. There's a chance that it could have been the title. My previous 2 novels, I struggled so much to name them, and I swore after the second one that I would write a book that had a good title from the beginning and we didn't have to even discuss it. And I knew I wanted to write about a choir, a women's choir, and music and singing. And women's rage was quite prevalent in the news. And I think the title came to me and I went from there.
And so the title now is the original title that you did have?
Yes, I'm pleased to say there was no working title. There were no discussions, multiple back and forth with my publisher about what to call the book.
Yeah.
We just started with this, and yeah.
And what an awesome title it is.
Thank you. I hope the book lives up to the title, because I did then have to grab this excellent title and make a story that would do it justice.
And yeah, we've got lots of people joining, which is really, really great. Just want to mention again, in case people have joined a bit later, that thanks to Penguin, if you type a comment if you type a question in comments, you'll have a chance to win a copy of The Angry Woman's Choir. So I can see there's quite a few questions coming through and comments. Sandra says she's looking forward to reading this book. She loved Welcome to Nowhere River.
Thank you, Sandra.
And Deborah says, hello, this is the first interview I've watched and it's amazing.
Thanks, Deborah. Welcome.
And Sharon wonders, how long did this book take you to write?
It's hard to pin down exactly how long it took, but it probably around 18 months, I think. I actually had to stop writing it during lockdown. And our lockdown in Tasmania was relatively short. It was 7 weeks, but there was a bit of uncertainty around how long it would be. And I found that living with women's rage and a whole choir of angry women wasn't going so well with my domestic life, given that women's work and caregiving appeared suddenly to be so undervalued during a pandemic. So I was pretty hard to live with. So I put it aside during that time and came back to it later. So there was a bit of a gap. I think it really came out, the first draft came out in a big, furious rush, really. And then that was very unwieldy manuscript. So that had to be pared right back and organised and calmed down into something that people could read.
Yes.
So I guess all up, I mean, that was a horrendous structural rewrite, basically, which took a good chunk of time. So I guess all up, about 18 months. Yeah.
And Bronwyn says, hi, everyone. She loves the book title. And Kelly also says, such an original, catchy title. Deborah's got a good question. She wonders if any of it is based on any truth.
Well, all of it is true, but none of it happened, as someone very clever said, and I've stolen that quote and probably got it quite wrong. But I write what I know, but I deconstruct everything and people and characteristics, and then I reconstruct them so that they're pure fiction. Only once in my novels have I taken a person and just plonked her in a book as she is, and there was a very definite reason for that. But no, I'm pretty careful. I was a member of a choir. I am a singer, and so there's a lot. I've drawn a lot from that, but there are no people in there, hopefully, that are recognisable.
And Kelly wonders if you've always wanted to be an author.
I think I was a pretty restless child and adult, actually, to be honest. And I wanted to be so many different things. I've always written, so that's been something that has been in my life anyway. And I entertained the idea of being an author. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a nurse. There are so many, a filmmaker, a flight attendant, a spy. I could list lots of them.
Yeah.
And I can now look back and say, well, all my restlessness and my not sticking to anything was justified because I was gathering material to be an author, and I couldn't be an author until I had enough material. So I've made that up in hindsight, but but I did write a novel in my early 20s, which was just a pile of steaming shite, and so I obviously entertained ideas then. And I've just always had writing in my life. So I don't think I ever actually said I want to be a writer until I was about 40.
And when you decided that you were going to be a writer, how hard or easy was it to find someone to publish your book?
Well, here's where an enormous amount of luck played a role for me, because I did write that novel in my 20s, which never sort of has been brought out of the bottom drawer again. And then I was writing a blog. I lived in a relatively isolated part of Tasmania with 3 children under 4, and I felt a bit sort of brain dead. And so I wrote a blog to sort of inform myself and keep my creative sort of my creativity flowing. And then I guess I've lost my train of thought. Sorry. So what was the question again? I was talking about being on the farm.
How hard or easy it was to get that first book published.
Yeah, so I was writing all the time, which is key. So even though my first manuscript was accepted by a literary agent, which was just the most amazing feeling and so surprising. That's not to say I didn't do so much work to build up to that, because I kind of found my voice. I wanted to write things that made people laugh. I knew that I enjoyed that. And I struck upon a moment in time when Penguin Random House were looking for commercial women's fiction, and that's what I'd written. And so I was pretty lucky because I didn't know what I was getting into, and I was not braver because I didn't know I was being brave, but I was braver than I would be now because I just sent 10,000 words of this is my first book, and the first draft of this book was quite filthy, and I sent 10,000 words of that to the head of Penguin Random House, Nikki Christa, and she very kindly said, just keep going, and that was enough. So I kept going. I gave it to my agent, and she just by some miracle wanted to represent me, and here we are. So it's been a dream run, but it's been a lot of hard work.
Yeah. And Deborah wonders if you've kept up your nursing registration just in case.
Oh, Deborah, I occasionally regret that I haven't. It would have meant working as a nurse. I think, I can't remember how much it is, but it's a certain amount of shifts every year, and I let it go. I miss it occasionally. I worked in trauma and emergency, and I miss being so vital. Occasionally I look at the nurses that I trained with who are now still doing it, and I think, oh my gosh, I'm writing silly books, and you know, I'm skilled enough to be able to save someone's life, and I'm not doing it anymore. But it's hard. Nursing is hard, and we, as I said before, we undervalue care, and they deserve better. But no, Deborah, I'm not there anymore. If everything goes pear-shaped, and because I'm on a dairy farm, if the dairy industry explodes or whatever, I would retrain. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great career.
And Kim wonders what the favourite part was for you for writing The Angry Woman's Choir.
Favourite part? I think the best part of writing any book is just the moments when, and this happened quite a bit during this book, was that I disappeared into it, and I found characters there that hadn't existed a minute ago, and suddenly they did, and I built them up until they were actually teaching me things, and I was getting angry on their behalf. So they became, there was just this most magical world. And in this study that I'm sitting in, I had on the wall in front of me pictures of my characters. I just found random pictures of what I think that they might look like alongside their little profile, and I put them all on the wall, and it was like being in the room with my friends. And every now and then my older daughter has an interest in writing, and she and her friend would come home from school, and they'd come in and they'd say, how's Irene, you know, or what's Mary doing? And I'd be like, well, I cut a bit of Mary's story, and they're like, no, you know. It was just this beautiful world that I just hadn't shared beyond that. And that's what's so magical about writing for me, and my favourite part of all of it.
And how great that must be to have your daughter so interested in it as well.
Yeah, and I thought about this after the launch. I should have acknowledged her and her friend, because they did that at a really uncertain time of the writing, when you've sort of got 15,000 words. You don't know whether you've got something, whether it's worth pursuing. And they were so engaged and so interested that it just was so encouraging. Yeah, I didn't say that at the launch, but yeah, I'm saying it now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bess and Laura.
No, that's great to hear. And Kelly, you were talking about your characters. Kelly wonders if you have a favourite character and maybe a least favourite character.
Well, I definitely have a least favourite. Jackie, you could probably guess. Who do you think my least favourite would be?
Do we
Other
want any?
blokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit
Yeah,
of a
there was
villain in
one.
this book. I tend to I like writing nice people, but you have to have a villain or two. So
Yeah,
he's my least favourite. If you read the book, you'll know who I'm talking about.
yeah, because we don't want any spoilers at the
No
moment.
spoilers. My favourite. Oh, I change. It's kind of an ensemble for me. I changed my mind a lot. I grew very attached to a character called Rosanna, who initially wasn't really in the book that much. And so I missed her. And so I worked out a way to thread her back through the book. And I was sort of experimenting to see if that would work. And it turned out it worked really well. So I think it's Rosanna. Yeah.
And Kathy wonders if you have a set writing routine, especially as being a mum as well must make having a routine difficult.
Well, Kathy, I start every day with all the best intentions to have a routine. And more often than not, particularly as my children get older and school is kind of getting more intense and there's a pandemic and you can't go if you've got a sniffle, blah, blah, blah. I'm invariably interrupted. But I just have to roll with that. And, that side of my life feeds so richly into my books that I do get frustrated, but I have to try and be patient with that. But to answer your question, on the perfect day, I would get all 3 children out the door, go for a long walk, and that walk's really important to me because it's when I can talk to a friend or a family member, listen to things. I might be researching stuff, but I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to audio books. And because I sit for the rest of the day, theoretically, that's really important to me to get that exercise. So I'll start work at about 9 and work all day until 3:30 when they all come back in the door and my work day finishes until about 8 o'clock. And I'm a night owl, so I'll often do some more reading, a bit more writing, and sometimes I don't go to sleep till about midnight, quite often. But I don't get up before 6:30. So I'm not one of those writers that gets up at 5. I wish I was, and does yoga and then, yeah.
Do the characters wake you up sometimes in the middle of the night?
Yeah, quite often. They won't wake me up, but once I'm awake because of some other reason, they'll keep me awake. Yeah, but I'm a pretty good sleeper, touch wood, because perimenopause is upon me and that's playing havoc with my sleep a bit, but I'm a pretty good sleeper.
And I saw Maggie said, I'll have to have a look at it. She said she loved the article you wrote on perimenopause. And she's actually put the link for it there for people to have a look at. So
thanks, Maggie.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on perimenopause, but I sort of theorise based on my own experiences and observing others. But it definitely fueled the writing of this book. So I have to thank it for that.
And Tony says some of the scenarios you write are really so laugh out loud funny. I'm thinking about the Brazilian wax scenario in Sparkle Pages. I unfortunately haven't read that, so I won't. And some of the things that Frey does in the Angry Woman's Choir, they really are funny. And she wonders if you're a natural comedian.
The idea of standing up in front of a whole room of people and doing stand-up comedy makes me feel slightly ill. So in that regard, I wouldn't consider myself a comedian, but making people laugh is really one of my most favourite things. I was always getting told off at school for distracting the class or being a distraction or being distracted. But one of my I was thinking about this today, one of my favourite memories of being at school was being told off by the teacher, she was trying to be angry, but she kept laughing. That sort of that's the kind of thing that makes me happy. So I'm glad that I've made you laugh, and I strive to keep doing that. But I don't know if I could call myself a natural comedian. I don't know. I'll let other people judge.
And Belinda wonders how you choose your characters' names. You do have some interesting names.
Yes, I think I went a bit overboard with the names in this last book, so I'm going to try and tone that down a bit. I forgot too that the name Freycinet, which is my protagonist, is hard for people to pronounce. You know, not everyone's from Tasmania and grew up going to Freycinet Peninsula in the summertime.
Oh, okay, so that's where that's, yeah.
She's named after, well, I'll blame her mother for this, because she had sons and then she had Freycinet, so she went a bit over the top. But yes, she named her daughter after Freycinet Peninsula, which is a beautiful part of Tasmania. And yeah, I forgot that it's annoying for people not to be able to pronounce in their head as they read. So I'm sorry about that. But that's how you pronounce it. You can spread the word. But I work really hard on my names. Probably too hard, as I said. I do wander through graveyards, collecting names.
Oh,
that's
you?
one of my pretty sort of morbid pastimes. I don't ever I try not to use an actual real name, but I'll use, bits of them. And then I've got a notebook that's full of names because I'll just hear one. The football, that's one of the places you hear the most amazing names. McCluggage. Is I heard that name on the footy the other day. I was like, right, McCluggage. That's brilliant. So I guess I collect them and then I wait for the right character to come along.
No, that's a great way. Sandra wonders if you've considered writing a novel based on your nursing experiences.
Well, I guess I haven't really thought about writing something directly about a nurse or a hospital setting, but those experiences have definitely informed parts of my book. I was exposed a lot to trauma and grief, and that hasn't really affected me in my personal life at all. I've been a charmed, lucky life. But I'm interested in human reactions to grief, and I'm deeply affected by them. I'm an emotional person, so I'm kind of interested in it, but also I worry about the people. They haunt me, and I guess those experiences and those memories do come back and feed into my book. So indirectly, I guess I have.
And Belinda's wondering if you're working on anything new at the moment.
Yes, I am, Belinda. I'm in a really sort of, what's the word, just haphazard phase where I haven't quite sunk my teeth into one project. I've got sort of 3 or 4 on the go, and I'm a bit wandering in the brain, and I keep being interrupted, and there's been a lot of work to do, which is fine, which is great, justifiably, to, get this out into the world. So I've been interrupted, but I've definitely got more books in me. This is me now. I'm a career writer, I've decided.
Yeah.
Even if I don't get read, I'm just going to keep putting them out. I've got so many ideas, and I just haven't settled on which one is the next one. But I'm getting closer, and I'm just having a lovely time with these ideas and filling notebooks, and I'm a great notebook person. So that's where I'm at with that.
And do you like to sound off ideas with friends or family?
I don't. I'm very protective of them until they kind of have legs. And I think legs for me is 20, 30,000 words. And then I'll know if it's a thing, then I'll talk about it. I feel ready to talk about it at that stage. So yeah, not really.
And do you have a bit of a writers' community where you are?
Oh yeah, well, for a start, Tasmania has just the most amazing writers and wonderful books coming out. It's all, I mean, not just now. It's always been sort of hub for beautiful literature. But there seem to be some amazing writers coming out lately and books coming out. So it's so exciting. So there's that, but also I've got a gorgeous little sort of online community of writers that we meet with once a fortnight. And that's really, it's special because it's a sounding board. We know each other really well. We laugh and cry. We share ideas. We say where we're at, and we hold each other accountable. And you know,
No,
I always
that's
say,
great.
like, it's great to have, it's great to get involved with other writers. You can, there's a lot of, you can go over the top with it and just end up spending all your time in writers' workshops and talking to writers and not actually doing it. So just, you know, a little bit is wonderful. Every couple of weeks is just perfect for me. So that sort of formal setup works really well for me. But they're all on the end of the phone at any time.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's
yeah,
good to
it's
hear.
lovely.
And is there anything you might have been reading lately that you'd like to recommend to us?
I've got a very varied taste in books. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, I reread classics. So Jane Eyre is one classic, you know, I'll turn back to that every couple of years. Lately, I've read My Name is Lucy Barton, Elizabeth Strout. I just adore her work. So I've been delving back into those lately. I read Jessie Cole's new book called Desire, which was it's a memoir. Just a beautiful piece of writing. Highly recommend that. And my friend Bronwyn Birdsall has put out her debut novel called Time and Tide in Sarajevo, and I'm halfway through that and I'm loving it. It's a bit of a sort of change of scene, a very welcome change of scene when we've been stuck. I've been stuck on an island for the last 3 years. So I'm loving that. And it's kind of a thriller as well. What else have I read? I've got Robbie Arnott's new book. He's a Tasmanian author, a young Tasmanian author who's writing the most beautiful, almost magic realism type novels. And he's got a new one out. It's on my list. It's on my pile to read. And I'm really excited about that. And Minnie Dark, her latest is out. So With Love from Wish & Co.
Okay.
So if you like commercial women's fiction and a light read, that's a good one.
Yeah, no thanks for those recommendations. I know everyone loves getting recommendations to add more books to their pile.
And of course, if you haven't read these books, you could always go back to those. Just shameless self-promotion.
Of course. And what do you hope readers love about your books?
Well, to touch on what we were talking about before, I hope to make people laugh. I hope to make people think, maybe learn something, and to come back when I next publish a book to want more.
Yeah. And I'm sure you get a lot of feedback from readers. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us? Maybe something that really touched you or something that you found funny?
Oh, I must say I've had some delightful. I don't actively read my reviews. As I said before, I'm quite a sensitive person, and sometimes even a really good review, I'll find something bad in it. So I'm very careful. But if I'm sent them, I'll read them. And I've been sent some just gorgeous, from all kinds of people, reviews for this book, and it's been so lovely. Really early on, I think before the book was even out, I was reviewed, and the woman said, there's a part in this book where one of my characters climbs a tree against her better judgment. And this reviewer said that the book made her want to go and climb trees. So that was lovely. I had some really nice feedback from Robinson's Bookshop in Glen Waverley in Victoria, and one of the women that worked there actually, she was like, this is my Angry Women's Choir t-shirt. They've made their own
wonderful
t-shirts. They've spray painted their shoes, and one of the women stitched this for me, which is Julie Billard's quote. But there's a character in the book who does cross stitch these kind of quotes, feminist quotes and things. And she made that for me and gave it to me. So that's
great. Yeah.
That kind of feedback is kind of tangible and wonderful. So yeah, it's been lovely.
Yeah, no, that must be great. And do you find that your characters stay with you after you've finished the book?
Not all of them, but definitely some of them. There are some that I feel I'd like to spend more time with. All 3 books have got one character that crops up in all of them.
Oh, okay.
So bonus points to anyone who can work out who that is. It's a cameo, but that's the nature of Tasmania, because you can be in all kinds of different circles and different stories, but you'll come across someone that knows someone or is part of that. So that's a little tribute to Tassie. But yeah, they do. They stay with me. And 1 or 2 of them are slightly enigmatic and I'd like to know more about. Or I just want to know that they're looking after themselves.
And do you have a favourite part of the Angry Women's Choir that you'd like to share with us?
I haven't got it marked, but you mean read it?
Or just relay from memory?
I'll have to relay it because I don't know where it is. But I think there's a description of when Freycinet first hears the choir sing and how the music affects her. And she is a musical person. She plays the violin, but she's not much of a singer. And she hasn't really thought about choirs much. And she's very affected by it. I really enjoyed writing the parts about the singing. As I said, I'm a singer, but I'm not a brilliant singer. And this is sort of one of the tragedies of my life, is that I don't have an incredible range in my singing voice. So I've given every character in this book, except for a couple, the ability to sing really beautifully. And that soothes my soul. And I think that sort of desperation that I have inside me to be better at music comes out in those passages. So they're one of my favourite. There's quite a few favourites. There's a character called Quinn who is just a joy to write. She's rude and irreverent and naughty, and she made me laugh a lot. And probably too much. I had to compare her back to.
Yeah. And did you say, do you belong to a choir yourself?
I don't sing with them at the moment because we sort of disbanded when COVID came, and we haven't sort of got ourselves back together again. But I've been singing with the same company, I guess, for about 10 years. And I sing cabaret with a number of them. We write shows together and put them on. And at one stage we had more of an ensemble. I think there were 9 of us. You have to be 10, I think, to be a choir. So,
okay.
But all women, and it was a delight, a joy.
And have some of them read the book?
Yes, there were quite a few of them at the Hobart launch, some of whom sang for me, actually, because the book comes with a soundtrack.
Yeah.
And the audio book has some of the songs that I wrote embedded into the narrative, and then the rest are sort of on the end of the story as bonus material. And at the launch, I had three of those singers came and sang their solos.
Oh,
and it
right.
was, a delight.
Yeah. And Deborah says you're so personable and articulate. She wonders if you enjoy doing promotional interviews for your books.
Yes, I do. I do. I really like it, especially, when it gets difficult is when you're talking to someone who hasn't read the book. And I know that it's impossible for everyone to read everything. But it can get a bit hard when in those situations. But mostly I've always loved the limelight. I love the stage. I'm happy to be doing interviews. I'm one of those rare writers who likes being an author too.
Well, yeah, and I'm interested to hear you say that about people not reading the book. That's one thing that I don't think I could do, is interview someone without reading the book first.
I couldn't do it either. Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. And
Thank you for having me.
We've had some great questions from people. Thanks for all the questions.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Do you want to let people know before we go as well how they can keep in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is megbignal.com.au, and I have a newsletter which comes out monthly called Reasons to be Cheerful. So please sign up to that. There's a link on my website, or you can find me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm pretty active on there, so I'll see you there.
Well, thanks so much, and I'll be looking out for your other books.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks for having me. It's lovely to talk to you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.